Hello, my name is Joshua Gleish. I'm the Associate Director of Administration for Columbia's ERM program, and I'd like to welcome you to this evening's event, our Spring 25 Featured Alumni Series. If you have questions at any time during the event, please feel free to post them using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. Questions will be answered towards the end of the hour. Before we begin, I'd just like to make you aware of some upcoming ERM events this semester. We of course are continuing our seminars, which start with coding for risk management, applied coding for risk management. It also includes our IQRM warm-ups and IQRM seminars, and finally our Intro to Finance seminars. In February, we will have our Land Your First Job workshop, and then Build It in a Day seminar. Finally, towards the end of the semester, we've got two exciting events, one with the International Finance Corporation and one with geopolitical risk. And then finally, we've got managing conduct in a digital world. And now I'd like to hand it off to our moderator this evening, Gino Guerra. Gino?
Hello, thank you very much, Joshua. My name is Gino Guerra. I'm currently a student within the ERM program. I'm currently a candidate for the class of 2025. I actually started within the program in spring of 2024. Before my time within the program, I was within the fraud prevention area of a telecom company within Peru. In Peru is where I actually did my undergrad studies. I did business engineering, and then I basically just went into the ERM subject based off what I had learned both in my professional life, academic life, and also, of course, my personal life. And I want to thank everyone for being here, and I'm going to start passing it off to our panelists. Let's start off there with Arthur.
Thank you, Gino. Hey, everyone. Good evening, good morning. My name is Arthur Chai. I am currently a senior analyst at Goldman Sachs Global Gain Markets, monitoring and testing. Our team's primary focus is to serve as the first line of defense, collaborate with internal and external counterparties to meet regulators, evolving policies and requirements. And before joining GS, I also had experience in classic investment banking, risk management, M&A, cross-border capital raising, and SPAC transactions. For educational side, I got my ERM in 2023. And before that, I got my first master from Boston University in finance and my undergraduate in accounting from Temple University.
Hi, everyone, and Happy New Year for those of you who are celebrating. My name is Izzy. I have been in the finance industry for over 13 years now. I sit within the Legal and Compliance Division and currently work in Product Change Management Office at Morgan Stanley. My team and I oversee product change proposals and new product approvals that come into the US banks. So my day-to-day includes engaging with core members across 18 risk stripes, being a liaison with our key stakeholders, and preparing quarterly presentations for our regulators.
And thank you, Izzy. You stole my line. And of course, Happy New Year to those who celebrate. And hi, everyone. My name is Francis Liu. I'm currently working as an enterprise risk management analyst at Morgan Stanley. My team oversees the full spectrum of the banks, the US banks risk profile, ranging from financial risk to non-financial risk. And currently, I'm also working as a workshop instructor at Baruch College and for their workshops in finance and econometrics. I earned my bachelor's degree in Baruch in 2022, and then completed my master's degree with our ERM program in 2024. Thank you.
Okay, great. Now with the introductions out of the way, we will start with our panel discussion. First off, I would like to thank everyone for being here to attend our spring 2025 feature alumni series. As already previously mentioned, I'm Gino Guerra. I'll be the moderator right now. And I want to thank everyone here. I want to thank our panelists, Arthur, Izzy, and Francis. And also want to thank all of our attendees. So with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the questions. Okay, So to start off, I'm going to ask this to each one of our panelists. Out of all the courses that you took during your time within the ERM program, are there any specific ones that you highlight as helpful to your professional development or ones that are specifically rewarding? I'm going to start this question off with Arthur.
Sure. The course I want to point out is the strategic communication for risk professionals. One of the reasons I thought is really important is that, people always ignore the importance of communication within risk management area. And, sometimes overemphasize on the technical side. But I would say that at the end of the day, risk managers' responsibility is to collaborate with multiple departments, like from business line to engineers, controllers, etc., from front to back, as well as to also collaborate with external counterparties like regulators and consultants to solve issues. So you gotta speak their language, and of course, technical side is important, but on the other hand, communication really matters for any risk professionals.
Yeah, I agree completely with that. Of course, communication is key in just about every single stage of life, professional life, and everything. I'm going to ask the same question now to Izzy.
Honestly, I found company failures to be really rewarding for me because we did case studies on real life corporate failures. I think it's valuable to learn from failures as opposed to just success stories. And the course focused on providing a deeper understanding of areas that are critical to company failures from a strategic, operational, and financial lens. And of course, strategic communication is important.
Yeah, great. And then to round this question off, I'm going to pass it over to you, Francis.
Yeah, so well, thank you, Gino. I always like that course, strategic communications, that Arthur just spoke to. But to answer your question, I think I enjoy, during my time taking all of these courses equally. I don't really have, a specific preference. I'm not liking any course over the other. So I thought all the courses I took were important to me because I got to do the elective courses that I liked, and I thought they really benefited my career. Now that I'm starting off with one Stanley. So no preferences here. All courses are great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's also fair. All the courses really have their own perspective. And yeah, just as you said, they're all useful in their own way. Now moving along, I'm going to ask you, Izzy, is there anything that you wish you knew at the start of your program that helped you further down the line? Anything specific that you highlight that you wish you would have known?
I wish I knew more upfront the resources that were available to me. For example, the Career Design Lab. We also have a mentorship program through the RMA, Risk Management Association. And having a mentor is always super helpful. I highly recommend it to anyone, no matter what stage you are in your career. And also, there are more courses that I wish I had available back when I started the program.
Yeah, great. And also thank you very much for that excellent segue into my next question, which is, are there any resources that Columbia or SPS has that you feel helped you outside of the classroom and the syllabus itself? I'm going to ask that question to Francis, starting off.
Well, I would say definitely leverage the resources that the school offers through Career Design Lab. So I think we are one of the very few schools that actually has a dedicated career offices located offsite in Midtown, which is right next door, Barclays, Morgan Stanley, right? So I think definitely leverage that. The location is important, but also we have very dedicated staff there. I went to do my my resume review. I had career conversations. As you remember, my advisors there when I first landed a internship with during summer 2 years ago. So a lot of great resources and tools they can offer. So I would say definitely leverage that resource.
Yeah, and also like the Career Design Lab, sorry, the CDL has a bunch of resources, like things that you might even not expect. Like for example, even professional headshots, like the same headshot that I had for this presentation in the slides before was actually taken at the CDL. So yeah, completely agree. It's an amazing resource. I'm going to ask the same question now to Arthur.
Sure. I would point out the enriching faculty and instructor resources, which are, great, resources to refer to if you want to network with the industry professional. Because we have like around 100 instructors and faculty members each semester, and all of them are not just academically successful, but also, professionally successful. And many of them are still, remaining as veteran in the industry. So by connecting with them would definitely give you more context within the industry. And like I previously mentioned, you gotta speak their language to get inside the door and to advance in your career. So definitely take the advantages to talk with those instructors. I personally had a lot of experience connecting with them, and I would say each of those conversations, matters and gives me a lot of insights into the industry as well as career development.
Yeah, great. And now actually sticking with you, Arthur, the follow-up question I'm going to ask you is, what are some difficulties that you face transitioning from academia over specifically to industry? Are there any specific skills that you wish you had polished a little bit more, or anything that you didn't expect while working within the ERM realm per se?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to answer this question, I'm gonna answer it in two parts, two perspectives. The first part, it would be the behavioral part. So if you want to be an expert, you're gonna act like an expert, right? So I do that by connecting with people and instructors within the ERM program, and I think that really benefits me a lot. But of course, there's always room and space to improve. So from behavioral perspective, I think there's definitely more things to learn from those professionals. And on the other hand is the technical perspective, because before and during my experience in ERM, most of my focus would be on the business side. Like I had a degree in accounting and finance, so I kind of not paying a lot of attention to the technical, like coding and programming. But that kind of gave me some challenges after I joined GS. But of course, my colleagues they're very supportive and helped me through that perspective. But I would say that to have some basis in tools, coding, SQL, like automation, Outrex, things like that, would give you extra advantages in the current risk management job market.
Yeah, great. So, yeah, I completely agree. You really have to know how to emphasize and how to use your network to your advantage, not only in the way to like get a job specifically, but also just to know what skills you might be lacking. So I completely agree with you. Just use your network, get as much information as you can, and move on from there. Thank you very much for that.
Great.
Yeah. And Gino, if you don't mind, I want to add on to what Arthur just mentioned. I would say a lot of time, you actually learn new things when when you're doing your job. And obviously, our program it offers a lot of great techniques, knowledges towards risk management. But a lot of time you learn new things in job, and those are maybe very small little things. But learning in the workplace is not the same as you learn in school. So hopefully what I'm trying to convey is always stay curious, right? When you begin your career or when you continue your career, always stay curious, always ask strategic question or ask questions that, I guess inspire, deep thinking and all that. So to stay curious, and I think it will definitely help, foster your career growth and definitely will let you learn more as day goes by.
Yeah, great. I think yeah, the key is that information is king with everything. You just have to know who to ask and how to ask them. But yeah, as much information as you can get is always going to be better. So yeah, thank you to both of you. And actually, I'm going to stay with you right now, Francis, for the following question. ERM right now is an innovative area that companies are investing more and more into. However, the concept of ERM itself may still be relatively new to some. So how do you specifically manage effective ERM communication within your company, or how do you effectively communicate with different stakeholders to create buy-in to the ERM program and the ERM initiatives?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question, Gino. Again, to your question, how do I get the buy-ins, right? Given ERM is still a relatively new initiative. You can even call it innovation, because not many firms or companies out there actually truly appreciate the values of ERM yet, which is why there's always a huge opportunity for all the risk professionals out there. But going back to your question, I would say really boiling down to two things, which is socialization, right? How you communicate with your surrounding, with your stakeholders, and number two is really when you do your visual presentation, right? How do you present these ideas? So I can give you an example of socialization, and then maybe another example for the visualization visual presentation. So I recently did a ERM best practices presentation with the head of ERM at my company, and before that, I actually tried to talk through this findings or whatever benchmark analysis that I did with my colleagues, with my managers, and even with the broader ERM team that we have. I even try to use almost every single opportunity when I get to network with even people from other sides of the firms or across different departments, try to get their opinions on what they think about risk management and what they think about enterprise risk management. So it's really socialization, right? You start off with a topic, with an idea, with something you're excited about sharing, but then you begin with just communicating with your surroundings, right? So that's the socialization part, right? So that people are familiar with what you're going to present, not feeling surprised. Wow, this is new to me. I think this only works with Apple, but so you always want to socialize in advance without having a surprise. This is my opinion. And the number two is visual presentation. Always work on your visual presentation. So what I did was, instead of trying to tell people, well, there are a lot of things going on, right? I'm going to give you 20, 30 slides. Maybe sometimes you want to think about how you can be more succinct and strategically present your idea. Or maybe if you want to you want to do a proposal, you may want to say, well, maybe, right, this is the incremental work that our team should be considering, instead of acting like you're assigning homework or saying, well, this is what we need to do, because you don't want to create that levels of burden, right? Perceived burdens on the other end. So you always want to be read the room and then think about how you strategically deliver that message.
So I would say you have to kind of adapt accordingly as to who you're speaking to, the context, the information, and just really know how to get that specific person, that specific stakeholder to be receptive.
Exactly. Yeah, and also, since you mentioned that, right, whenever as a risk professional, your conversation with your partner, which is in the second line, is often very different from your conversation with the first line, the business unit or the business owner. A lot of language surrounding that, but it's very different. So you always need to have them understand your needs and how your needs actually create value to the firm. I always have these, I think I learned this joke from one of my colleagues. They say, well, if you really think about us, we're a cost center, and all of us are hired by the first line, by the business people, right? Because they go out there, they meet with the clients, they do the trading and do X, Y, Z. They generate revenues for the firm, for the banks, and then those money are spent on us as risk managers. That's why we're cost center. So if you want to push out for an initiative, that means to them it's cost, right? So you gotta be able to convince them how is this cost benefiting not just you but also across the firm. So that's the value add part. And of course, many of our audience here either took or is taking the value-based enterprise risk management course founded by SimSeal. So I think this is an amazing course. Maybe I should have talked about it to one of the first questions. But yeah, I think really understanding how do you create value add through your work, it's important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into a little bit of a lightning round of questions. These following questions are only be two of them. I'm gonna ask to all three of our panelists. So to start off, Izzy, you're going to start off with this one. How do you see ERM contributing to organizational resilience in the face of global disruption, like pandemics or geopolitical events? I know it's a little bit of a hard one.
I actually really like this question because we see a rise in demand for robust internal controls and a stronger risk management framework and risk governance now more than ever, especially because you see companies, for example, we had Citibank, which had been issued a consent order back in 2020 in the amount of 400 million, right? And then another consent order on top of that in the amount of 75 million just last year for failing to comply. And there's other examples of institutions that are issued fines for not having a strong enterprise-wide risk, framework. And so, yes, there is definitely a heavy emphasis on ERM today, and that's why.
Yeah, great. I'm gonna follow up the same question with Arthur, please.
Yeah, I mean, I am currently in the team that with a purpose to enhance ERM risk management framework. And I think the way we do that to contribute to organizational resilience is to, implement preventative methods to enhance controls in order to detect and identify risks, issues or events even before they happen. So compared to maybe more traditional way to, after certain events damage were caused to manage the damage of certain risky events, we do that in advance and do it more proactively to detect and prevent that to happen, especially when it comes to geopolitical issues. It's sometimes black swan events is hard to predict, but based on research and based on a robust risk management framework, you can minimize the impact of certain events.
Sure, got to minimize the impact of even extreme events. I'm going to follow up right now with Francis for the same question.
Yeah, and then I'll thanks, Gino. I'll probably continue with what I said earlier about risk management, especially ERM. It's really having to oversee and monitor the full spectrum of the risk portfolio of the company. So traditionally we have been traditional risk management, has been focused on too much on financial risk management. And as you can see, once we turn that dial or the clock, once we head into the 21st century, many things happen, right? Including geopolitical events, natural disaster, right? We're having a lot of things going on around the world. But so this, I guess opens questions to whether or not, the way that any companies, their risk management practices, it's sufficient so that they actually get to understand their full exposures, right? So it's not just financial risk exposure, but now you need to look at your non-financial risk exposures. So ERM happens, and ERM is one of the best techniques for companies to actually achieve that, right? So you're not looking at just this vertical silo risk management, but now you connect all of them, and then you try to create a consistent picture, and then to escalate a message to the management and then to the board, so that people are aware of the situation and then can make decision quickly, right? Fast enough so that you can react to any changes to the environment. And I guess history shows the faster that one reacts to certain changes and then make the best, I guess, the word could be the optimized decision, then the better off, right? The better outcome that you're likely to have, because if you look at any cases, any negative events, those who are, I guess those who are, I guess behind the game, or those who weren't aware of any news or any negative events at all, they're always they tend to be the losers, right? You look at the global financial crisis, you look at the all of these, for example, the Archegos case, right? There's some winners, some banks just lose significantly lost more than the other banks. Why is that the case, right? There's always things that you can do So again, I think that's what ERM it's good at, and I think going forward we are going to have more of these operational capability kind of questions for companies, especially for banks. So ERM is definitely going to play a big role in that area.
Yeah, great. And there's one specific thing you said that I really want to take note of is the fact that ERM is enterprise wide. So it's financial, of course, is a huge part, but there's also strategic, there's also operational, etc. So I really want to highlight that point. Really like to thank you to all three of you for your answers. Now, follow along to the next question. I know that especially now, especially for a lot of people, the job market specifically is a very hot topic, something that a lot of people are worried or interested about. So I'm going to ask all of you, how can current ERM students be different and differentiate themselves in a competitive job market as it is, well, right now? I'm going to start this one off with Arthur, please.
Sure. I gotta say this is a great question because before when I was job searching and also when I connected with others talking, having coffee chats regarding it, I always mention that find yourself unique on the market is very important because that gives you something that can be replaced easily by others. And the answer to that question is there's no single way or a template to follow to find your unique position on the market because each one has a different background. And the way to differentiate yourself currently in the job market is to really dig into your past experience. It could be from educational side, academia, or from professional side, your past internships or job experiences. But the point is to really dig into past experience and find, the combination that will meet the position that you are pursuing is need. I hope that makes sense.
No, yeah, completely. So basically, there's no framework to be unique, which of course makes
definitely. Yeah. So out of every person that I talked who are very successful in the industry, I never see a pattern or a path to follow. Each one of them has a very unique and individual story to be at the position they are currently at. So I gotta say, there's no single way to follow, but all of them knew themselves well. They knew what they want to do, and they knew what they are capable of. I think that's really matters.
Yeah, amazing. Just trust in yourself and trust in who you are. Yeah, I think that's really solid advice. I'm going to follow up with you, Francis, please, for the same question.
I would say, this is a really good question, right? Differentiation. Every individual, I guess every individual being always has their core competencies, right? Some people are good at, for example, coding, right? Some people are good at analyzing financial statements. So it really depending on the role that you're getting into, right? You already have that inherent skill sets that allows you to break in and get into maybe the first and second round interview. But in terms of, since I believe we have a large audience coming from our current students in the ERM program, I would say maybe think about, instead of telling people, well, I'm a student from Columbia ERM program, why don't you share more about the amazing course projects that you're doing or you worked on or you're working on, right? Tell them how you actually tackle a problem. Even that's from academia, that's fine, right? It's an experience. Talk about how you work with your peers to, for example, analyze a case study. I think this will really impress I guess the hiring managers and the recruiters. In addition to that, I would say also try to accumulate some sort of internship experience as well, while you're in the program. So again, experience is always a value add. So and that could be a key differentiator.
Yeah, amazing. Always try and get as much experience as you can with whatever it is you can. Yeah, agree. And then finally, I want to follow that up with Izzy, please.
Yep. So just to supplement what Francis and Arthur have already mentioned, to stand out, I would say just be sure to do your research. Francis already mentioned this. Ask a lot of questions. Ask the follow-up questions. And there, for example, there's new policies, there's new regulations being passed every so often. So as an ERM professional, we need to be sure to stay on top of that, be vigilant on current news, current events, to really make ourselves marketable. And also just be sure to network. The Columbia University has so many events that we host. Be sure to attend those if you can, and add every single person that's in your class, because you never know who you might bump into later down the line. And in my experience, sometimes it has been who you know rather than what you know. And so it's it's important to just go out there and network, prepare your elevator speech, and stay on top of your network and add everyone on LinkedIn. That's really high importance. I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you all three for that response. I think you especially have to emphasize about asking as many questions as you need as you see relevant. Always remember the fact that having too much information is hard. So just get as much as you can whenever you can. Now, I'm going to follow up with some specific questions right now. These questions will be aimed to each one of our panelists individually. So, staying with the theme, I'm going to start off with you, Izzy. Izzy, right now you are a VP Product Change Management Office at Morgan Stanley. So, based off of that, I want to ask you that AI recently has become a buzzword. It has become a buzzword in recent years. However, its impacts are already being seen in the real world. How do you specifically think that this recent AI boom will impact the practice of ERM and the larger labor market moving forward?
I have definitely seen an uptick in processes that incorporate artificial intelligence in recent years. So as you mentioned, there's a boom, and I think it makes a lot of sense, right? It also makes a lot of people nervous that, AI is taking over our jobs. But I look at it as if, AI is a tool, right? It's a tool that greatly enhances the larger labor market through automation of manual processes. And I think that on a global scale, it will facilitate us in doing our jobs quicker and more efficient.
And have you specifically seen your organization take any specific forward-facing measures to counteract any negative impacts that AI might cause? Because of course, there are a lot of beneficial things about it, but there also could be a negative side.
I think now more than ever, most organizations, including my own, they're placing a heavy emphasis on um, we have to be up to date, right? We have to be innovative. So incorporating artificial intelligence, machine learning, it's very top of mind. And I could see the negative connotations that it might have, such as, fraud, potential for fraud and cybersecurity. But I think it's definitely worth taking on.
Yeah, amazing. I couldn't agree any more with that. Now I'm going to move on to you, Francis. Francis, right now you are an analyst within the Enterprise Risk Management Department of Morgan Stanley. So you yourself working within the ERM team, how well integrated do you feel that frameworks are in your organization?
Thank you, Gino. Wow, that's a good question. Well, I don't know how much freedom I have to answer this question, but I would say, I have a solid team and we have a lot of frameworks in place. Sitting at the top of the house, we have, just like many other banks and companies, we have something called a risk governance framework, which is the center stone, the centerpiece, right? The top of the house framework that governs the enterprise-wide risk management frameworks, right? So, again, I think we are, my team is solid, and we are working on many amazing projects to help even enhance other things that we haven't think about. But overall, overall, I think, again, nothing much I can comment on, but I think we're doing good.
And specifically coming to frameworks, of course, frameworks are a way that you're supposed to not necessarily do things, but like guidelines to guide you through certain different approaches. but frameworks themselves have to be changed, modified, updated. Do you see frameworks as ever evolving, or do you think that they require a large change done at once? What do I mean by this? Does a framework change day by day, or does everyone meet, I don't know, once a quarter and do a big change at once?
Interesting question. I would say based on my experience, it could be a combination of both. So usually ideally speaking, right, you want to have an annual checkup, right, for your framework, for your policy and procedure and all of that. But I wouldn't say the update frequency or the cadence will be on a daily basis, maybe once a month, maybe once every quarter as well. That could be done. And usually, if there's any, I guess, suggestions or proposals to be made to a framework through policies and procedures, again, you can go over that socialization. There will be conversations or formal meetings happening with various stakeholders so that people understand the concern and understand the needs to amend that framework or that policy procedure. So I would say, again, a combination of both. But of course, again, theoretically speaking, the more frequent something get updated, the better it could be, because things outside the firm, outside any company, can be evolving so much even faster than you could ever expect. So it's always good to stay up to date and to make sure you're on the look for any changes out there that could potentially harm the company. You want to make sure you have adequate control and risk management through through the policies and procedures in place.
Yeah, great. So you have to find a nice middle point.
Exactly.
Keep up to date, keep everything running smoothly. Yeah, great. And now finally we're gonna move on with Arthur. Arthur, right now you are a senior analyst in global banking and metrics within GS, within Goldman Sachs. So within your role, especially because you're within monitoring and testing, what role does data analytics play in your organization's ERM processes? And how do you ensure data quality and data reliability?
Sure. Basically, we ensure, I mean, there are multiple approaches to ensure data quality and reliability. And the approach for our team is to ensure the effectiveness or the existence of controls. The question is, how to do it efficiently and accurately, right? Because there are over thousands of controls over there across departments, from frontline to backline. So the way we do that is to implement automation as well as data analytics. That's where data analytics play a vital role. So by doing that, we can be more effectively to test multiple control at the same time, and the outcome would be more accurate, based on how customized our model is.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. How much within the data that you actually utilize, how much would you say comes from internal sources, for example, made by GS themselves, versus external sources like, I don't know, news data, publications, NGOs, etc.?
Yeah, so I would say that there are different levels of data, right? So we have, some internal data, we have more credit in it. We have, it's more authorized. And we also have external data, which could be sometimes not so accurate. So at the beginning, when we choose those data, we would seek more reliable data instead of, less reliable data, that's for sure. And we have different levels. We'll categorize those data based on their reliability, and through different systems and database. So I would say at the beginning, when we choose the data, we choose the best data to test and to conduct our analysis.
Sure. So you go by reliability first, basically, kind of a standard.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. Okay, great. So right now, what we are gonna do is right now what we're going to do is before we move on to our closing remarks, I just want to remind our attendees right now that if you have any questions that we're going to answer in the next part of Q&A, you can start sending them to the Q&A section down there. And we will get to them as soon as we finish with this part right here. So right now, moving on to our closing recommendations. So finally, to close things off here, I want to ask all three of you if there's any personal recommendation or story or metaphor or anything that you would like to share with our attendees. I'm going to start this one off with you, Francis.
Yeah, I would say my recommendation. So since again, I think there are a lot of current students from our program joining today's call, I would share perhaps some interview related suggestions to my fellow students in the program, and I would say always understand the supply and demand almost in every situation. When you are the applicant, you're going to interview, talking potentially to your future manager. What you want to know is, first of all, you don't just apply for any random job. You apply for a job because you think that matches your skills, and that's from the other side of the table. Your manager would actually think the same way too, right? They would think that you qualify in terms of knowledge base, right? But a lot of time there are a lot of these ins and outs. That's why I call it the nuances in any roles, any jobs that just cannot be discussed out there in LinkedIn, in the public job descriptions, right? These are these are the small things yet turn out to be very important to the eyes of the manager, right? Your potential future manager. So you want to get that information ASAP, right? And that is understanding the demand, understanding actually what's the expectations of your managers regarding this role that you're applying for, that you're interviewing for. And I can give you great tips in terms of how to get to there, right? After your 30-second page, right? When you start off your interview, you sit down, you give this 30-second pitch, you will then pause and say, well, to make the best use of our time together, can you please tell me what are the most important priorities of this role, or things like that. And then the manager may be then very interested and then giving you a bunch of things, or maybe sometimes they go very short. They just give you 1 or 2 points, and maybe that's the same information that you see in LinkedIn. Then you want to say, well, is there anything, right, in addition to that? And then you could pause, you don't say anything, you let the manager keep speaking. So again, as soon as you find this information, then the earlier is better. Then it can help you to think about then later or in the middle of the interview, how you can use your experience to meet their needs, right? To supply to that demand, right? So don't ever talk about anything that's non-relevant, and only until you find it out after you ended the interview, you thought, well, actually I have a great skill, but then it's actually not needed in that job, right? You always want to talk about things that are relevant, very much needed for that job, for that role. So that's the interview part. And I forgot to mention also, try to explain, in addition to that, try to explain abstract concepts in simple terms. So this takes a lot of strategic communications as well, but try to keep things simple. As I mentioned, when you do your visual presentation, try to keep things simple. Always think of how you can explain, all of these crazy mathematical or all of these technical terms in simple words, so that your managers understand, so that the other audience, the broader stakeholder understand. That will really help you, because as saying goes, right, the more friends you make, right, the more people understand you, the better you can be as a being, so as a human being. So that would be pretty much from me. Thank you, Gino.
Yeah, so definitely I agree. What you're basically saying is that there exists, especially when you come to a job interview or something of the sort, a type of information asymmetry within both parties, that your role and your job is to try and shorten, to try and make better, to try basically to get your message out in the most efficient way, if you would say, in order to be able to have your opportunities kind of blossom into what they really are.
Exactly, because again, oftentimes, applicants just spend too much time. It's a common mistake. They spend too much time going over their resume, talking about all the course project experience, all of their internship, and that's not needed. Maybe it's only a few things that you did here, a few things you did there that's relevant to the job. And you don't know that until you have the manager start talking about what they actually want, what the expectations are for this job. Then right? Because job descriptions often the time, I guess there may be studies out there, either too vague or they're just too boilerplate, right? Too general that you don't even know if the same job in this company is actually the same in that, the same job in that company, right? With the same title. So again, the earlier you get the information, the more benefits that you can get.
Sure. Thank you very much. Then I'm going to follow up with Arthur, please. Any personal story, remarks, recommendations you have for our attendees?
Sure. First of all, I really want to echo what Francis mentioned because I think that really makes a lot of sense. Fit really matters in current job market because based on my experience, based on my observation, actually, a lot of those who eventually got the job position were those who are perfectly fit for the position or mostly fit for the position. Because sometimes it doesn't even matter how good you are because every candidates are very good, but the one who's kind of like customized for this position would really, stands out and convince the interviewers. And from my personal perspective, one thing that really works for me all the time is that I always suggest to have a goal and then to execute. It's simple as that. But I always sometimes it's hard to understand. It's kind of abstract. But one metaphor I use is, pursuing anything, pursuing a goal, or just taking an example, job searching is like walking in the mist. If you don't have a goal, you don't know where you are going. As long as you have a goal, you kind of, have a light in front of you. You kind of have a beacon. So you know that the general direction towards that goal. And the other most important thing is to execute. The ability to execute is, I think, is what really distinguishes candidates from each other. So ability to execute is like it's like walking. Pay attention to the steps, every steps you take during that mist. Because in the mist, you don't know what's going to happen or anything in front of you. It might be a cliff. You're going to pay close attention to your, what you're stepping on. But at the same time, you got to look at the lights, at the beacon. Otherwise, you're going to take, the small path is towards somewhere else. So find the balance between execution as well as to having the goal is what working for me all the time. And I would definitely recommend to really think about that and yeah, just execute, do it.
Yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice. Also, the metaphor of walking in a mist, I think it's extremely relevant, especially when it comes to looking for a job. I think a lot of people can relate to a feeling of feeling a bit lost, not knowing if you're taking a misstep. But yeah, having a specific goal and being able to execute that, I think really helps you, giving you a cardinal sign, a light in the mist, as you say. So yeah, I really like that. Then finally, I'm going to pass it off to Izzy here. Do you have any personal story recommendation or something for our attendees?
Yeah, so I actually have a twofold recommendation. I also have a metaphor. It's called eating the frog, and that means going above and beyond, right? So identify the tasks that your boss especially dislikes and take care of it for them. And you do this because it's low-hanging fruit. Your boss, of course, will appreciate that. And it may even garner you enough credibility in the long run to get a promotion or a raise. Now, the second part, this was one of the questions that we had in our Q&A. It's don't be afraid to apply for a job that you may not fully qualify for. So as I mentioned, I currently sit in the legal and compliance division at Morgan Stanley as part of the product change management office. I don't have a background in legal and compliance, right? So I came from banking I've worked in multiple banks. I've worked with different internal partners and business units. So when I saw the job description posted online at Morgan Stanley for this particular role, knowing that I did not fully meet all of the required bulleted items on the job description, I didn't hesitate to apply because I said, this is something that even if you meet 8 out of 10 or 7 out of 10, go for that role. Don't be afraid to apply for it. And, I passed the interview and obviously I'm sitting here today, but I would not try to deter anyone from applying for a job that you don't fully qualify for. Because of course we have skills that are also transferable, right? So we have the hard skills, but you also have the soft skills. And certain job descriptions, certain roles are teachable because we're always evolving. ERM is evolving. And some of these jobs, I would say just apply for them and, continue to grow and learn from them as you go along. I know I do.
Yeah, great. So yeah, of course, you just have to get out there. You have to be able to get in front of opportunities, and if you want something, just try it. Because yeah, if you don't try, then you're 100% sure not gonna get it. So I completely agree.
Yeah.
Also, I really like biting the frog metaphor. They apply very, very well. So thank you all three of you for that. Also want to thank all three of you for answering all the questions. Sadly, right now the questions have ended, but now we're going to be able to pass it over to the Q&A section. So please, everyone within our attendees, if you have any questions, just send them in. I'll try to get to as many of them as I can. And yeah, so don't be shy. We're going to start off here with the first one. I'm going to read it off, and any one of our panelists, you could just answer straight away. So first question here is it more important to network or to learn more technology? Is it advisable to get a job or PhD after a master's degree? And are there any suggestions for if we want to get in big into a big company?
I can take this one. So this is kind of tricky, right? It's subjective. So I would say it's a little bit of both. It's definitely key to network, and you definitely need to know your stuff. Is it advisable to get a job or a PhD after a master's? That also depends on what path you want to take, right? If you know that your role requires more education, then of course, we would recommend higher education, but that doesn't mean you can't do both, such as me. I finished the ERM program part-time and I was working full-time. Any suggestion for getting into a big company? That's where the networking comes into hand. So you want to make sure that you throw your name in the hat and you speak to everyone in the room. You get FaceTime, and that will definitely help increase your chances.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm not sure if any other of our panelists wants to add something else there.
Well, I don't mind chiming in. I guess I agree with what Izzy just mentioned, right? It's life is not always either or. You can always get to do multiple things in parallel at the same time. So long you have the energy and you have the commitment, two things. You can have the commitment, but if your body feels like you're overloaded, then you may not be able to execute it, even though you have the commitment, right? Or maybe the other way, you have the energy, but you lack the commitment. You stop doing it 3 days after 3 days in a row. So again, it all depends on your objectives, right? Who do you want to become and what do you want to get out of by doing certain things, right? If you can certainly learn more about technologies while going on network events, right? You can learn both things, but do you want to become a technology professional? If that is who you aspire to be, then you may want to go on to many technology forums or events, right? To get to meet and network with these professionals. And again, like what Izzy already mentioned, right? If you want to get a PhD or do you want to start working right now, that also depends on your objectives, right? Do you want to accumulate experiences earlier, or do you want to continue to do more in-depth study about any subject matter, right? Again, depends on what you like and what you're good at.
Yeah, great. Okay, now we're gonna follow up to the following question here. This one comes from Michael. He says, I'm coming from an accounting background in my undergraduate degree. What factor should I consider when pursuing a full-time role in ERM for careers such as public accounting, consulting, or investment banking, for example? Anyone wants to take this one?
I can take this one because I also majored in accounting in my undergraduate. Yeah, I mean, accounting is definitely a great major. I mean, I had a lot of pain when learning it and graduating, but I never regret choosing this major. Very powerful, very fundamental. And for the factors to consider when pursue a full-time job for career, I have to point out that public accounting, consulting, and investment banking, there are three separate different areas. They have similarities, but they are three different directions. You gotta figure out what you really want to do and what your skill sets will align into. I would say that, with the accounting undergraduate degree and ERM, you can definitely go into, all of those directions. But really think about the work itself. Is that something you wish to do? And does that meet your interest and skill sets? Because I mean, passion, as long as you have passion for a job or a position or a goal, you're gonna advance your career. If you don't have a passion for anything, you're gonna fail those. So I mean, it's really figure out where your goal is lies in, and do more research about those three different industry or sectors. Try to find an internship, or at least go to at GPT about what each of those would be doing, and that'll be very helpful to set up the goals.
Yeah, great. So yeah, just remember, kind of get to the specifics of what it is you want to do so you can actually hone into those specific abilities. Now we're gonna go on to what I think is gonna be our final question here. How do you benchmark what is a successful ERM program? So I guess what this is saying is, what is considered a successful ERM program within the professional world? How do you say this program is working? Anyone want to take this one? Going once. How about you, Francis? You're currently working within the ERM team. So how do you specifically say that a ERM program is working or not?
This can be a tricky question. Oftentimes we can only speak in hindsight, meaning we don't really know if certain thing is working until we have the outcomes, right? But oftentimes EIM is supposed to be continuous, ever evolving, and forward looking. My impression is the whole industry, not just financial services, tend to still think that risk management is backward looking. It's done in one time and then just close the book and then put it in like the bottom of the drawer and all that. I think you really need to have sharp eyes, fresh mindsets, and curiosity, as I mentioned before, and just interest being actually an authentic risk professional, so that you understand whether or not there is gap, between your firm's current risk management practice versus the best practices out there, whether it is from the industry or from academic. So you need to have all of those elements that I mentioned. And again, as time prove, you can always, things working until they don't, right? Look at global financial crisis. Look at all of these accounting scandals, etc. So you always gotta be thinking about, is there something that we're not doing better, right? And then from there, you start to go down and say, well, is there any particular area that I can keep enhancing, that I can do better? Not for the sake of meeting regulatory requirements or getting the attention, but just, for the good of the company, right? Think about how risk management can add value to the owners, to the stakeholders, to the depositors, to everyone who needs it.
Sure. So just make sure that it adds value. Well, right now, guys, to the panelists, to our attendees, we are right now at 7:30 on the dot, so we're going to start wrapping up here. I want to thank everyone for being here in attendance. I want to thank, of course, our panelists again, Arthur, Francis, and Izzy. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your expertise. And thank you very much for answering basically all of my questions, and also the question from the Q&A. And once again, thank you all for being here. And if you want to reach out, ask any other specific questions to any one of us, please don't hesitate. We're all more than willing to help with that. And yeah, thank you all very much for attending.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.